Hey gamers, Gecko here. If you're somehow not caught up on where we currently are, I recently decided to do a stream where I tried to play Slayer using this. This is a levelers controller that I'm not used to using. I'm used to using arcade sticks. During the course of the stream, I learned several things about the levelers controller. The main thing being that it's very hard to move, and I'm going to have to relearn a lot of different things. Funnily enough, my left hand is not just for blocking, it's for moving, it's for jumping, it's for doing motion inputs, it's for super cancelling. There's a lot of different things that you do with both of your hands in fighting games. And having to use a completely new controller that I'm not used to was more of a challenge than I actually expected. But there was a bit in the stream where I sat down and I began to lab different things in order to figure out how to actually play on this. At some point, the realization came to me. I know how to lab and find out how to do the basic things, but you might not. You might be playing on any controller and having the same experience I was having on this, where you're not sure how to walk, how to do specials, how to do a combo, how to deal with the opponent's bullshit, what you're supposed to look for. So today, I'm going to briefly put this down, I'm going to pick up my arcade stick, and I'm going to teach you how to lab properly. If you want to see me play more on this though, I'm streaming right now. Go down to the link in the description. We're still continuing the Slayer grind. We're currently at Diamond 1, which is fucking insane. If you want to see how I got there, go check the previous video. But we're going to be trying to get to Diamond 2 on this thing before I eventually go back to Stick, because while I am very happy that Varmilo gave this to me, I do not like Levelers. So let's boot up Guilty Gear and I'll teach you guys how to lab. Alright, so as you can see, we are in Guilty Gear Strive, the main game that I play. I'm currently on Slayer, the character that I was learning, and Kai is the dummy character, as he's the character that I like to try and beat up. We're going to start with something very simple. How to do special moves. A lot of the time when people first try doing fighting games, they just sort of hit whatever buttons they can, and they see what's happening, and they don't really understand how they do anything. I accidentally did a super there just by mashing, and it doesn't really feel that good. When you go into a fight, you want to do your moves with purpose. When you want to do a dandy step, you want to do a dandy step. When you want to do a mapper hunch, you want to do a mapper hunch. When you want to do a super, you want to do a super. You don't want to have this situation where you're doing something and, like, you're in the middle of a combo and it's going crazy and you're, like, doing mix-ups and shit, and then you're like, it's time to bust it out, and you go for the super and you get nothing. It feels bad. It doesn't feel good. So drilling out motion inputs is one of the most important things that you can do before you really do anything else. So how do you drill out a motion input? How do you get that muscle memory and get prepared for what you want to do? Well, it's very simple. To begin with, we're going to turn on a couple of displays in the actual training mode so that we can understand more of what's going on. Every fighting game has some form of information display that you can have. Some are better than others. I'm going to show you how to get to strives. Getting to your games probably isn't that hard. It's generally something like this. You go into the settings menu and you look for something called display settings. Then you have a bunch of different options. The most important ones that I would say if you're looking to figure out how to do inputs is input history and virtual controller display. What these do individually is input history shows the inputs that you just did on the side of the screen, or sometimes the bottom, sometimes the top, depending on the game that you play. And the virtual controller display shows an accurate display of your controller. So I'm going to turn these on and we're going to see what they look like. If you look at the side of the screen, you can see all of the inputs I did. You can see the inputs that the Kai bot was doing when I accidentally hit the replay button. And as you can see at the bottom, you can see the inputs that I'm doing. And if I get Kai to do stuff, you can see he's doing his inputs. That was for a different character, but it's on Kai. Here you can see the sort of things that you're doing, and you can more easily diagnose the mistakes that you're making. So let's say that I want to do a mapper hunch. A mapper hunch is quarter circle forward. So we'd be doing down, down, forward, forward, and then we'd be pressing punch or kick. It kind of looks like this. As you can see, the input's not necessarily the cleanest. Those were actually pretty clean, but if I just do it raw, it's not necessarily the cleanest. It doesn't have to be. As long as the input comes out, it doesn't necessarily matter how messy it is. There will be times where you don't want to do specific things. Some characters have half circle forward moves and quarter circle forward moves. And if you do like this, you won't get the right move. But that really depends on the character that you are playing. You may find that you do something like this and the input doesn't come out. You just sort of go for it, and then for some reason, you don't get the input and it feels weird. It feels like you did it. Like there, it kind of looked like I did it, but you didn't really get it. Or like you do something like this and it doesn't really work. It doesn't feel right. I'm so used to doing these inputs. It's really hard for me to fuck them up. But that's where the virtual control display and the input history actually come into this. If you look, you can see that I hit the punch button when I was at down forward instead of finishing the input. There's also times where people do something like this, where they sort of like miss a input or miss a cardinal. It's very important that you look at that and you see what's going on so you can quickly diagnose, I'm pressing this button too late, I'm missing this direction, and you can sort of go for it. Once you get it and you feel like you're getting it pretty consistently, I recommend that you try and do it 5 times. This is what I always do for basically everything. Just like go somewhere where you're not going to be interacting with the bot too much. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the most important part, if you press up and the reset training mode button, I think default it's like option on my controller, but that's a PS4 controller, so it'd be like whatever the reset button is. You'll go to the other side. Now do it facing left. This is sort of a joke among fighting game players of like, oh, haha, do it facing left. But it is very important, especially in 2D games. In 2D games, you'll find yourself in situations where you are like constantly switching sides just by doing stuff. Like Slayer literally has a dash teleport that sends him through the opponent, and Dandy Step goes through the opponent. So like you will constantly find yourself switching up and going from side to side, going under, going over. So it's very important that you can just do the moves that you want on demand on both sides. Now, this may be a tiny bit difficult when you're first starting out. That's why I recommend taking a break after getting it. If you are like struggling for ages, you're just really trying to get this input, and then you finally get it, I recommend taking a small break. Take like a 5-ish minute break. Maybe go stretch your legs, have a little victory dance, like click your heels, say yippee, and then come back and try it again. When learning stuff, it's important to segment it over time, so you don't do it all in one batch. Just sitting here and constantly going like mappa hunch, mappa hunch, mappa hunch. You'll be fine with it, but it won't necessarily solidify itself. So taking a little bit of a break will help you get that muscle memory and do things more consistently in the future. Not to mention, if you're struggling with it, taking a small break can actually help you. Your body will basically just get used to the motions, and while you're thinking about something else, in the background, your brain will just be getting all of the things that you've learned and condensing it and putting it into information that can help quite a lot. What a lot of people find is they'll lab like a really hard combo for a very long portion of a day, and they'll finally get it, and they'll be like, fuck yes, I got it. And maybe they try it again a couple of times, they don't quite get it, but then they go to bed and they wake up, and since they've rested for a long amount of time and their brains just internalized everything that they were doing, they can land it more consistently. Learning things in a fighting game is a skill that takes a long amount of time, so don't beat yourself up if you're not getting it immediately. Just take a little break, come back, try it again, and enjoy yourself. Once you do get the motion inputs down and you feel pretty consistent about them, it's time to start doing them in other ways. Most importantly, doing it in the middle of a combo. Moves on their own are good, but the way that they link together, especially in anime games, is the most important part about them. Dandy Step is a very cool move, and you can just use it for pressure, but you will end up using it a lot in combos. So you need to find a basic combo in which you can use it. Now, this doesn't need to be anything crazy, especially not to start with. I recommend finding a 2 free-hit combo that just does button into special cancel. Something like will be enough for now. Just getting used to the feeling of canceling your buttons into special moves will really just help you get things more and more regularly. Of course, when you get more used to it, you can do more advanced combos. And even start, like, making your own. I was going to say I kind of made that up on the spot. I really didn't. I stole the start of it from somewhere else. But eventually you'll get so used to the things in your character that you just won't really be thinking about the special moves. And that's kind of the point. Once you do these more and more and more, you'll get so used to doing these inputs that they just become second nature. And you can start doing more absurd shit that you just don't have to worry about. And that's when fighting games get really good, and that's when the lab gets a little bit more interesting. I'm sure some of you are probably very annoyed, especially the more, like, dedicated fighting game people are like, why is he just talking about your moves in the lab? This is what's wrong with the fighting game community. And yes, a lot of people just use training mode to get their things down, But again, you have a bot that you can control. Basically, every modern fighting game has a way to record inputs and play them back so that you can check certain scenarios. This is the real power of the lab. Once you've gotten past that initial hurdle of, I'm just going to learn my basic moves, I'm going to learn basic combos, I'm going to learn things about my character, we can now start going into drills on what to do against other players. When I was playing on this, one of the things that I learned really quickly was I had a hell of a fucking time dealing with zoning. If my opponent just sat there and started firing fireballs, there wasn't a lot I could really do about it. I felt like I was kind of stuck. And slowly I'm being turned into the piss dimension. Because I didn't know how to just get over an IAD on this thing, I was really susceptible to zoning. So I had to set up a drill in training mode. Now, the beautiful thing about some modern fighting games is that some of them actually come with pre-built-in drills. Street Fighter 6 is really good for this. It has anti-zoning and anti-air drills that you can just activate, and they're really good. They're exactly what you would need. So if you play those games, you don't really have to worry about that. But there is still things that you should know about your training mode. If you don't have the automatic drills and you need to set them up yourself, you're going to need to learn how to actually use the bot and figure out how to actually get him to do what you want. To do this, go to button settings and look near the bottom to find play and record. These are specific training mode only inputs, so I recommend binding them on buttons that you're not really going to use. And they're pretty simple. Record records the motions that you do as the bot. Play plays them back. In Guilty Gear Strive specifically, you have multiple slots. We can go to the recording settings here, and we can see that you have 5 separate slots. They also tell you what characters they're on. As you can see, I was labbing quite a bit of Asuka stuff recently. These are all him doing his different cubes, so I was trying to figure out how to get past them. I have a Potemkin slot, which was just dealing with Tick Buster. If you don't know what a Tick Buster is, it's basically Potemkin doing a normal move to make you block, and then pot bustering you when you come out of block stun. You can like clear these slots and just have them be empty. You can like save and load recordings. So if you have like specific drills that you want to do, you can just like record them to this and then click save and then load them at a later date when you're ready. It's a very good system. Genuinely, I think it's really, really well made in Strive. Very good. It's very nice. But you don't even have to interact with that menu when you're doing it. If we go back to the display settings, we can actually display the dummy information right here, and we can see what the dummy's doing. So now if I press the record button, he's on recording standby, and we can move him around, we can get ready for stuff, and then I press it, and we can see how long the recording's taking, and now we just have control of the dummy. So if you want to set up a zoning one, go into recording standby, select the slot that you want, jump, and then just start firing fireballs. This is why learning how to do your motion inputs is pretty important, because you can't do your motion inputs, you can't set up the bot in order to do things. Again, you need to learn your layer 1 before you learn your layer 2. But now that we have this bot, all he's going to do is jump, and he's just going to start firing fireballs. And from here, we can begin to learn how to deal with zoning. So, how would I go about this if I was learning for the first time? Well, I actually did this live on stream. Go check out the Twitch down below. But the way that I learned how to deal with it was pretty simple. Just IAD over the fireballs. Then press a button when you land, and you're able to deal with it. But there are other ways, and I recommend experimenting with your characters to find specific things. One of the things that I remembered, I didn't actually find this, I remembered this from watching other players' footage, is that Slayer is able to 6p through fireballs. If the fireball is thick enough, he's just able to, right before it hits him, boom, 6p. Doesn't have to deal with the fireball anymore. Very good, very useful tool. A lot of characters have things like this where they're able to deal with projectiles in different ways. Not all of them are recommended. For example, if I actually go onto the Kai bot, if you want to change the slot in training mode, by the way, press the play button while in recording standby, and you change the slot that he's in. Kai can do things like boom, and then Scum Dipper. So what that'll do is, like, you can deal with that, but you're not just going to be able to, like, ha-ha, over everything. In actual matches, you need to learn more things, but having these tools in your pocket will be very useful, just so you know exactly what it is that you're looking for. And being able to get the actual inputs of dealing with it down is really important. If you're in an actual match, it can be quite stressful trying to, like, on reaction, IAD over these things. So having a drill in training mode where you're able to just, like, get it down, and then just, like, do whatever the fuck you want, really helps you just get more familiar with how to actually deal with things. And you can do this for a bunch of different things. One of the most popular ones that I've seen, especially in things like Street Fighter, is the anti-air drill. So what you would do is you would record the dummy just doing an IAD in, or well, in Street Fighter, just a normal jump in, and then finding ways as your character to deal with it. So in Guilty Gear, the obvious one, 6P, you try and get a combo after it. Knowing how to deal with these things and knowing how to look for them, and then working on your reaction time with it is very good. What a lot of people like to do once they've got familiar with their drill is actually set up multiple drills. So what we can do here is if we're wanting to do an anti-air drill, we have slot 2 as the IAD in. What we can do on this is just have them jump neutral. Then from here, we go to the recording settings. We set the timer of what we want for these. So like the priority, we only have 2 slots, so we're going to have them both set to 10. Then on recording standby, press until we get to random slot, and then just play. And we'll get a random slot that's available. And from here, we can begin learning to react specifically for things like IAD in, or whatever it would be that you want to learn. Learning how to put yourself in a safe situation where you're able to learn specifically how to deal with people doing things is very good, and it just makes you a better player, because when you find it in an actual match, you'll be more likely to actually react to these things. So that's how you set up a bot. That's how you get some basic drills. I don't really have time right now to go through a bunch of different drills that you could learn. If you want me to make a little compilation of drills that you guys could learn, please let me know by telling me in the comment section down below and subscribing. I would really appreciate it. But there is something that I can show you. So Guilty Gear and basically every fighting game has characters who have very specific knowledge checks that you need to learn. There's a couple of characters that do things that are very, 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 very strong, but if you know how to deal with them, they're not actually that strong. Letting players get away with these knowledge checks can be absolutely detrimental to your growth as a player, so you're going to need to learn how to deal with them. But how do you learn how to deal with them? Well, there's multiple steps to it. First off, you need to see the thing in action, which means probably getting your ass kicked by it. The rank system in Strive is very good for going and playing multiple different players on multiple different characters that all have different things that they can do, but you can also just go and find matches in any way that you want, and as long as you get your shit rocked by someone doing something that seems impossible to beat, you're on the right path. The second thing you need to do is watch your ass get beat, which is a little bit painful, but it's very helpful. Again, most fighting games nowadays have a replay feature. Your matches will be saved as information that the game can read back and show you how you played. So as you can see, we can see a bunch of matches that I have done recently. You can see the results of the matches by holding left trigger. You can change the sort order. You can do all sorts of things. You can also save specific matches, which is something that I used to do for like getting good at Strive and stuff. So I have a lot of really old save matches that I would just keep there for when I'm like, I need this for a video later. I would recommend deleting a lot of your save matches because things can get flooded up pretty quickly. Like, I have more save matches than I do actually relevant new ones. But still, after that, it's important to go and find a match where you're getting your ass kicked. Let's do this one with Unica, since I actually know quite a bit about Unica, and I got my ass kicked in a pretty simple way here. Before you do anything, you want to make sure that you are set up correctly. As you can see here, it just looks like the match, but if you had to press Y, you would normally have this thing here. You can actually toggle a lot of things in Strive about the game, so you can completely turn off the gauge display and the settings and just have the match look like cinematic screenshots. But for our purpose, we're going to put on input display. Get rid of the control menu because it's a little bit ugly. Press space to play, and now we can see the exact inputs that everyone's doing. It says they're pressing like Q and J, but that's just because of the second controller I have plugged in. We don't worry about that. And from here, we can see the situation where I start to get my shit rocked. Unica does // into gunshot, and she just keeps doing this for a little bit. Oh, well, I thought she did. Maybe I'm remembering a different round. From there, we can literally look at the inputs that she's doing and recreate them in our training environment to find out how to deal with them. See there, she just boom, boom, does the scum dipper, does the overhead, and we can see these inputs on this side. And because Unique is a pretty simple character, we can easily recreate this. So we take the inputs that we found, we go into training mode. This may be a bit of a problem that you run into if you don't own every character. If you find yourself in this situation, though, you can go and you can ask a friend who does own those characters. You can then play in online training mode, and they can act as a dummy for you. It's a little bit inconvenient. I would rather you be able to lab against every single character for free, even if you don't own them. but unfortunately, we don't live in a utopia, and this is something you're just going to have to deal with. And now, we're going to put ourselves into as close to that situation as we can, and we're going to try and get the bot to do what that person was doing. So, I'm going to backdash as Unica, jump so that I know that the recording's about to start, and then just do the input. I'm going to remake that because there was, like, stuff that I was, like, showing it for the camera, so I'm going to remake it a little bit. And boom, we have the bot now doing the thing that we were dealing with. From here, we can begin to learn how to deal with that specific situation. So we get the bot to play, we just block it out. We try to see if there's any gaps or anything. Is there anywhere I can mash in this? I actually can. Slayer's 5p is very large. We just do basic questions. What if I start FDing everything? It sends her further away. It's a lot of meter, though. Don't necessarily really want to do that. What if I try to 6p this? If she's close, it probably works. What if she's further away? Still works. There's a gap there. What if I try jumping out? I can jump out. I can even get a counter hit from it. I'm Slayer. What if I, like, just try to dash? The dash is a little bit too far, unfortunately. Just asking yourself basic questions like this, like, what can I do to deal with these things is going to help you out a lot in the long run. Knowing your options in any given situation is really going to make you just a better player against these characters. Now, there are a lot of characters in basically every fighting game, and doing this for every single one can be quite annoying, but thankfully you're not alone when it comes to labbing. Using resources like Dust Loop, you're able to find information like this relatively easily. A lot of people have put up a lot of different information about a lot of different characters. Some people have even made entire Bibles about how to fight their character because they're sick of knowledge checking people. I'm not joking. Bedman players are insane. So checking these things out and just asking people how to deal with things will help you out in the long run. For example, anyone who comes to me being like, I don't know how to beat Unica, I tell them if she's doing gun, just jump. Because it's a universal option. It gets you a lot out of it if you do it properly. But with characters like Slayer, he has more options. Just mash P. Far slash. We know that Slayer players love doing that. Finding out the little options that you can do against characters is going to be very important. But what if you know that there's more layers to it? Obviously, Unica's not always just going to do gunshot in the corner. If anything, gunshot can be a little risky for her. Sometimes she's going to do low. Sometimes you're going to do the overhead. Well, then you need to do what we were doing before and create multiple slots. Let's make one in which Unica does the overhead. Let's see if we can find any tools that beat the overhead specifically. 5p still works. 6p still works. Far slash doesn't work anymore. 2D definitely doesn't work anymore. Hell, 2p works. Hell, we even get a little combo off of it, and we get out of the corner. What about the low? You can try more complex stuff when you get more used to the game. For example, we have IBFD, but you can also try more weird stuff. For example, you can just throw Unica out of it. Obviously, if she's too far away, it doesn't work, but Slayer gets pressure there. Having that option where you're like, I'm going to IB everything you do and then throw you out can work. Maybe you'll find that actually it's a little bit too scary to deal with the low and you're more willing to just learn to block everything and learn to deal with it that way. Or maybe you're like, we can deal with this, put it to random, and then just see what you can get away with. For example, I saw the overhead there, so I decided to mash. I actually didn't see the gunshot there. Just learning to lab these things, learning to get them, will help you out a shit ton. And you're not going to get everything every time, and that's fine. But knowing your options in every situation is really going to help you out. I've been trying to learn things like this against Elfelt, a character who's also very good at putting you in annoying RPS situations. She'll put you in situations where she's able to just kind of go into her wrecker, or she's able to do the bomb beret, and it can be very annoying. But having characters who are able to deal with these more reliably, and also a little bit of labbing to know what I'm looking for, has really helped me out in the matchup. It's knowing what to find, how to recreate it, and how to beat it is the main thing. Now, there will be times where you're in a situation that you can't really deal with on your own. Some characters are a little bit too complicated to really set up their situation properly. Jacko has been a massive thorn in my side for this for a very long time, since she's able to create very abstract and very weird situations with her minions. So trying to recreate them in training mode isn't always the best thing. If your game has replay takeover, a very nice feature that I hope is coming to Guilty Gear Strive, you're able to do the labbing in the replay right then and there. But having someone go into the online training mode with you and help you lab against it will also be really helpful. Listen, people are there to help you. Most of the time. Majority of people in this community aren't assholes and actually want people to improve. Asking them how to deal with their characters and how to lab against them will help you. I've learned a lot about the Round the Fall matchup because of Siren, someone who goes to my locals and helps me out with the matchup. I learned a lot about how to lab from other members in the community. This is all stuff I've learned over the course of many years. And now, hopefully, you understand more about how to use the lab properly. There's still a bunch of information that we haven't gone through here. Stuff like counter hit settings. Make sure your opponent is always crouched whenever you're trying to combo or pressure sequence, because if not, there could be times where like their hitbox is a little bit too high. All that kind of stuff. Using the block switch settings to enable fuzzy overheads and stuff like that. Dealing with drills that deal with tick throws and all that kind of stuff. All of these more intimidating sounding things. But modern training modes have so many options that if you find yourself in situations, you're able to deal with them relatively easily and use these training modes to set it exactly how you want. Hell, most of the time, you don't even need to do the recording. Strive has a counterattack setting where if you get them to block a move, you can get them to do something after. I think this is her DP, so if I get her to block, she just bang, and I can learn a DP punish from it. It's fucking awesome. Getting familiar with the lab is going to help you a lot in the long run. So I really hope this video has helped you figure out more on how to lab, what you should be looking for, and what you need to be doing. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe. I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.